Hey, I'm Justin.
This is Chaz.
Join us as we look back together, but learn to stay present.
Come with us as we rise up with hope on the horizon.
This is the podcast of extraordinary millennial gentlemen.
Well, today we've got Anthony here with us. Me and Anthony go back a ways. Justin's here, and
I am here.
So me and little background. So me and Justin, I guess I'll fill in the Justin side first. So me and Justin met at college and met through some mutual friends, and then have just kind of stayed in touch. Didn't really have classes together. I think
No, ever.
It was really only, it was through our mutual friend Jake, and and then somehow we still, I don't know how we kept meeting up after that, but it just happened to work out. I don't know. So goes back there, and then me and Anthony, when I moved over by you, right, that's where we met. I don't know. That's been a while since. We've been away from there for before Scotty, and with him coming into this world and becoming a father, and then and me and Anthony, and this is the fun tidbit for me, that the thing we have in common, or that I have in common with both of you, is that we both would hit the gym together, right?
Oh, there we go.
There's a common thread here. So yeah,
Yes.
Me and Anthony, I still remember these killer single-legged Bulgarian squats that, and Justin, I know you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I do.
We would go to the clubhouse and try and bust out this routine that
Nice.
was killer. I don't know.
So you guys are doing like Olympic lifts in like a clubhouse gym. That's legit.
Well, yeah, we had to use dumbbells, and then but yeah, Anthony's a big runner. He got me into running. We almost pulled off like a half marathon one day, and I don't know if you
That's
remember
awesome.
that. It was,
I never helped Chaz with cardio or weight loss ever. I'm not a glowing example of that.
Yeah. So that's fun. But so how things been, Anthony?
Things have been going well. So like I said, still running. We actually, pandemic and things getting cold this winter, not having access to a gym. And we actually invested in a treadmill.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, we finally got one. We've been talking about it forever. You and I have been chatting about it. So we found one. It's in their basement, and I've started taking advantage of it. So looking forward to those cold winter months. Anyway, so, and then, I picked up some free weights from some people so that we're moving out of our area, and
perfect.
It's like a super cheapo weight set. It only goes up to like 80, 90 pounds total.
Hey,
but
that's a lot.
I can throw that on and do a couple of things with that. It's more than the 5-pound weights my wife uses. So
those paper weights.
Yeah.
Oh man. So another thing that I really like that we've been able to reconnect, me and Anthony, over is what is it called? Marco Polo. We use that app, and he was really like the guy that he'd always be there. It was if I slept in and didn't make it to the gym, then he would still like go run around on the street because I didn't make it.
Nice.
During some of these, but through that we've been able to kind of just check in. So he's kind of my accountability partner.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So we just check in, say, here's what we're doing. Here's how we are on our goals. Have we met our, weight loss goals or strengthening goals or targeting runs that week, whatever it might be. And so that's been really nice to kind of bring that back especially with like what you talked about, we're kind of locked down. It's hard enough to find the right equipment, time, all that to get it in. So that kind of helps, I think, even out some of those peaks and valleys. So.
Yeah, I think the accountability is, when we first met, was a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
For me, getting up in the mornings, having somebody to meet and to teach me, right? I'd never done any kind of strength type of anything whatsoever. I did high school swimming and running, and they didn't really emphasize that in the programs I was in.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that great at any sport. So, why would you focus on those kinds of things with a subpar athlete? But, I appreciated that accountability and the learning that we had when we met. I think it created that bond.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, it is. I love that technology is leveraged and it's free, right? Marco Polo is free. But having that relationship is sometimes tough to find, right? But it's amazing that you don't have to be at the same gym, in the same place, doing the same routine, and you've got that accountability partner just to touch base with.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. That's inspiring. I'm taking mental notes right now, by the way.
Well, it's kind of been my necessity, right? I live
Mm-hmm.
in a college town, and so a lot of my acquaintances are temporary residents here, where I'm more permanent, and it it means I have to make new friends all the time, but it means I also have good friends that move on. So
Right.
There's another guy that Chaz knows, who lives in Texas now, and he's big into running, and we call each other and we run together and talk over the phone while we're running.
That's
it's like
awesome.
4 a.m. in Texas, and I'm running at 6 a.m.
Nice.
Again, it's that kind of like accountability. It gets us out of bed and helps us get our goals. And it's also just like the friendship, like you find somebody that's a good friend. I think as men, we don't talk about that part of things, like those relationships as much, are really important. It can be hard to find with a transient community.
Oh, that's for sure. So that really leads me, now I'm really curious to know, sorry, Chaz, I'm not letting you talk, your broader kind of value system, the things that you put value and emphasis on as an adult. I'll shut up rather than trying to interpret what you may value based on what you just talked about, and just let you answer.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to think about it. What do I value, right? So I think my family, right? I'm got a young family, so that's obviously something super high on my priority list, my values. I'm religious, so religion and kind of a moral code is high in my value list.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think community is really big on my list, and that draws from my religious community, but I think broader as well. I value kind of having people around and being part of something. And I think that's where athletics comes in, right? Like having a team, or, working out, being able to go running, just create some camaraderie and kind of a connection with people that I think is good. I never thought of myself as a social person, super social person, but like social exercising is like something I'm way into.
Yeah.
Well, you get rid of all of the, what is it? What would it be? I'm not technical. I'm not learned in this stuff, but just as a fellow human being, I think you just kind of get rid of all the formalities, let's say, of social introductions, and the interaction can be limited to a common ground that is an automatic conversation starter. And when you add in, especially with athletics and with, performance, you add in goals and supporting each other in goals, or accountability in goals, you speak a common language right from the get-go. And it's interesting to me that then you can have relationships that are hundreds of miles away and could be about, I really don't know you that well. We have this common bond, interest, and everything else that's kind of the traditional approach to friendship maybe can just grow through exercise, performance, athletics.
Yeah.
That's kind of fascinating to me, but it makes total sense.
It makes me think of, we're seeing this trend a little bit, right? I mean, if you've heard of the Peloton bike, or even just their app, their app, you don't have to have a bike anymore. You don't have to have their treadmill, which they look sweet, but they're super expensive. But you can do body weight workouts. This is social exercise. Now, I think what you're talking about is slightly different than that. And I think there could be, this more niche area for, I mean, if there was an app that you could both like schedule that, see where each other are running. Like if they linked in like co-op running into some of these other apps, like I'd be down. Or, co-op workouts, like across time zones, across, different activities, which I know, like the Nike app and stuff, like some of those run ones try to level that playing field and give that some community there. But I think there's a few features if they added that I think could really take off. But
what Chaz had me thinking about when he was mentioning that was that, something my wife would say a lot when we've moved a lot in my career, and we'll go to a new place. It's kind of like your experience in a college town where there's kind of a merry-go-round, let's say, of friends and acquaintances just by the nature of being in a college town. And as we've gone from place to place, it's kind of been that for us. And so my wife, when we go to find a gym or a place to exercise, she's like, I want to go somewhere where they have really good classes. So she can automatically introduce herself and kind of integrate into that social group, even though she doesn't know anybody there. Right. The commonality is there of you're there for a purpose. You probably have totally different starting points. But she always says that. She always says, I want to go where there's a class. So what you're describing, saying, well, because of COVID and because of the world that we're in, I connect and I have those relationships. And it's not a class setting, let's say, but it's still that connection, right? That social connection, having to do with workouts and exercise, accountability. And it's valuable for both parties. Right? There's an exchange there. Yeah. A benefit.
Yeah.
So you're a self-professed, not great athlete, but Chaz is a decent athlete. And Chaz is always interested in things like multiple layers of things at the same time. And so you have to be fairly dedicated to this. Athletics aside, just dedicated to this lifestyle, just knowing Chaz. So I'm kind of trying to transmit through osmosis a little bit more about you, but where did the interest in sports and athletics and exercise really come from for you? Did you have a family member? Were you shown the way? What was it for you?
No, not really. I mean, I have 6 kids in my family. I'm the third of 6. And so like my oldest sister, she did cross country running and kind of set a path for, I would say for the family, but really at the end of the day, like her and I are the only 2 that really did cross country every year in high school. Right. And my second sister, she really didn't do anything athletic. I think she tried running. She did diving for a while. But there's that oldest sister who she ran and then she trained for like a triathlon, and that got me going to the pool. Yeah. When I was really young, I, did swim lessons, but I got embarrassed about swimming because I had to wear a Speedo at some point when I got to a certain level, and I wasn't super comfortable with my body image. And
come on, as a teenager,
my sister's making fun of me wearing my little Speedo,
Oh, great. Yeah.
And like there's like that masculine masculine insecurity, you know, when you're,
Yeah.
you know, a young man.
Yep.
And I don't know, like Speedos just seem super embarrassing and not very manly. But I lived at the pool when I was younger. I would go to our local pool and I would be there. And from the time it opened to the time it closed, I knew all the lifeguards. You know, I just swim. I just liked hanging out in the water. So when my sister started training for a triathlon in high school, I was still in middle school. She was getting helped by a guy that was coaching the high school team. And he's like, you know, you're actually pretty good in the water, so you should come and do this. You should, you know, swim when you get into high school. I started running cross country because of my sister. There was another guy that ran on the team. He was a senior, right? So all the freshmen like loved him. He's a total ladies man. All the girls loved him. He was super fit. I think he went on to like do Ironmans. I think he's still doing Ironman.
Wow.
But, you know, he kind of took me under his wing and he's like, you know, he'd see me walking home from cross country practices because we lived, I don't know, like a mile from the school or something. He's like, I'll give you a ride. And then when swimming started, he's like, I'll pick you up in the mornings and I'll take you to the swim practices. I'll give you a ride home.
As a
There's
freshman,
no way.
a
What was that?
senior was, and you were a freshman.
I was a freshman. I think, you know,
Wow.
like,
Breaking some social norms.
yeah, well, you know, like it's the swim team, which is like the
Yeah.
nerdiest sport in high school. And
The chess team would disagree, but go ahead.
right. You know, nobody came to swim meets and, you know, they were hurting for men and I was kind of a bigger guy. You know, I got approached by people to play football, but my mom was like, no football, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of like a beefier, you know, middle schooler. And so my parents were glad that I was doing exercise. So I think just like doing that kind of stuff got me into, you know, like I always felt good. Like I could go out and do stuff, you know, when I wanted to. My family's always been into outdoor, like camping and whatever. But, you know, when I went to college, I kind of ran a little bit, but, you know, gained like that college 50 and then got married and
50.
got married and, you know, gained
Newlywed
more
50.
on top of that. Yeah.
Jeez, triple digits.
No, I'm probably not that much, right? I didn't gain that much weight, but, you know,
Major life
definitely
adjustments.
had other priorities, right? Like I was doing school, I wasn't getting out and exercising as nearly as much as I had wanted to. And I think some of those like body image insecurities followed me into, you know, college and stuff. So
it was a new competition, the competition for mates. It's no joke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think a bunch of that all kind of played into it, right? And then around the time I met Chaz, we were kind of like settling down. Like I'd done all these intensive rotation programs with my first employer out of graduate school. And like my weight was going up and I just wasn't feeling good. And, you know, I talked to a lot of people like, oh, like I want to do a half marathon or like, we should do this, we should do that. It never happened.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Chaz, I was telling about John. You remember John?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I won't say a last name, I guess, because.
Yep.
Yeah,
John, your identity is protected, brother.
John. Yeah.
Because you're definitely listening.
Right. Well, I'll tell him about this episode.
Yeah,
There you go.
I'll have to.
But, you know, he was the first guy that was like, seriously, like, I want to lose weight too. And I think he was doing a diet bet. I don't know if you guys know diet bet.
Heard of it.
Like
I think I've
like
heard
a
of that too.
social, you sign up with like a group of people and you all put money in a pot. And it's like, if you make your goal that month, you all get your money back.
I do that with myself all the time.
Uh-huh. It's different when you're giving the money to somebody else and they're giving it back to you.
Yep.
Which is why I continually fail my self bets. Got it. Check.
And you still get your money back.
So, you know, this diet bet group, they take your money up front and then, you know, they'll keep it. And then you have to prove that you lost the weight and they'll give it back to you.
Got it.
So there's like social and financial motivation there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they
Peer
do
pressure.
like, they did like one, they do, I don't know what they do now, but back then they were doing like 1 month where you had to lose like 4% of your body weight. And then
Wow.
they had a 6-month transformer where you had to do like 10% of your body weight over 6 months, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
And so he and I signed up and he's like, okay, I've got to like run. I need to start doing more. And so we started meeting every morning to go. And then I think it was that same year. Yeah.
Did he have the knowledge that you did about running? And I don't mean experience, but like knowledge, like.
I don't know, not really. Cause like
Okay.
I would set our pace and I would, you know, decide how much mileage, and he really wanted to do a half. And I was like, I've never really wanted to do really long distances. Like I'm good with 5 and 10Ks.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll probably never do a whole marathon. Like I really have no motivation. I'm like, I don't need to prove that to myself or to anybody else. It just doesn't sound fun to run for 4 hours. I was like, a half marathon. Yeah. You know, like that sounds like it would be manageable. And if I'm running with a friend and we're talking, like, that's great, you know?
Yep.
So I was like, and he really wanted to do it. So I was like, I'll do it with you. And that'll be kind of like, I'll get out and run. You'll get out and run. We'll work on this goal together. And so that kind of started me down this social exercising thing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And so, and I also, that was like, you know, we motivated each other to hit our goals. And I lost a ton of weight that year. Got into shape, you know, got into shape. And just kind of like found my groove with running again. That felt really good.
How many years detached were you from that, would you say?
Oh, probably like a long time. 10 years.
10 years. Like, okay. Yeah, that's significant.
No. Yeah.
I was going to say it was significant if you said like,
to like 8, maybe 8 years.
Okay. Still.
Yeah. I mean, like basically after high school, like I was a casual runner, right? Like I'd eat a bucket of ice cream one night and be like, I need to repent.
I need to run. Yeah.
You know, I got to go run the next morning, maybe for the next 2 mornings. And then I'd be back to my old habits and not running. And, you know, so yeah, it'd been a while, but it was like a habit that I knew I liked, that I knew I wanted to be in, and, you know, a place that I wanted to be. So, you know, I wouldn't have gotten there without friends and without the motivation of other people.
Mutual accountability.
Yeah. And I'm to a point where I do a lot myself now, but I enjoy it like hundreds of times more when I'm with somebody else. And I think that was always kind of like intimidating to work out with somebody else, because it was like, oh, they know more than me, or they're faster than me, or they're, you know, this or that. Yeah. But I feel like
the competition is healthy.
Right. Well, yeah. And like, sometimes it's not healthy, I guess, too. You know, like if you go and you want to work out and you're trying to like lift more than the other guy, but he's clearly stronger than you and been doing this like his whole life, like, you're going to hurt yourself, you know?
Yes.
But like the masculinity, like you want to like prove yourself, right? All that testosterone or something. But, you know, it took me a little while to kind of like work through that, I guess, and to like feel comfortable being like, okay, I can be vulnerable with this other guy, and I can get out and work out and, you know, better myself, and we can have a good time doing it together.
With what you've mentioned so far, a few things that came to mind was with all of that, kind of those ups and downs, those different, I mean, just your whole history that you've gone through, kind of what you've brought up mostly is kind of the exercise piece and how the social exercise, and, you know, I've been a part of that. But curious, through all that, what have you found as you've gone along that really re-energizes you? Like, because a lot of those things seem kind of draining. You know, it could be work, it could be, you know, at times we get drained. So it's just curious, what have you found kind of charges up your batteries to kind of keep going in those instances? And then maybe some major lessons, like, you know, if there's any of those where you felt like, hey, this is kind of one of my life lessons, what that was and how you learned from it and turned it into, you know, something positive for yourself.
Yeah, I feel like those can be two separate things.
Sure.
So what do I do to regenerate? I think just being forgiving of myself. I think, you know, we talk about this a lot, Chaz. Yeah. It's like, you know, don't let one bad day or one bad week or whatever it might be, you know, derail things, and just say, you know, just kind of live the moment and be like, okay, today or this week was what it was. Like, things were busy, life happened.
Yeah.
Just reminding myself that it's more about like the consistency, right? With any habit,
Mm-hmm.
with anything we're trying to accomplish in life, right? It's not usually a big bang. You're going to get it done. It's going to happen all in one go.
Yeah.
Whether that's meeting financial goals, health goals, relationships, you know, it's just working at being consistent. So
yeah,
I think for me, it's re-energizing. I don't know if it's re-energizing, but it's motivating for me to be able to just tell myself like, okay, things aren't going the way I want. Like maybe my weight's going up, or, you know, I'm not meeting this goal or that goal. To take a step back and say, okay, it's not great, but if I'm consistent, I know I'll keep moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in a lot of ways, that is a good life lesson, right?
Absolutely.
That I apply in a lot of things. Career, you name it, right?
Yeah.
Can I throw something out there?
Yeah.
What comes to my mind when you say that, Anthony, is you're giving yourself the opportunity over time to unlock your potential, because for myself, probably for a lot of other people out there that are listening, you're thinking whether it's the first run or the 100th run, it's just going to be the best every time. It's going to build on where you are. You're never going to plateau. You're never just going to feel like garbage. And like you said, whether that's, you know, athletic performance or that's finances, yeah, I'm never going to make a stupid mistake with my money, or the markets are always going to treat me well. And then there's going to be days that just aren't great, moments that aren't great, weeks that aren't great. And I think what you're hitting and is really resonating in my mind is that to unlock potential, it primarily takes commitment, just sticking through it. Is that fair?
Yeah. And I think just allowing yourself to, I feel like maybe this is just a me thing, right? Like, I feel like culturally I get this perfectionism kind of thing going where it's like, you've got to be the best, you know, you've got to be the top of your game. You've got to be, you know, making more than everybody else. You've got to be, you know, in the right, you know, social, whatever, the right body type and the right this or that. Yeah. And it's, you know, being able to take a step back and say, that's not important. What's important, you know, for me is that, you know, am I enjoying this? And if I am, you know, if this is something that I like and I want to continue, be forgiving of myself, right? And just say, you know, I can have those down days. I can have the off day. This is a rest day. This is a rest week, you know, like, doesn't mean it's over. Doesn't mean I've fallen off the train or the bandwagon or whatever. I can keep going.
Yeah. I know.
Let myself have that space, right?
Yeah. I know for me, kind of seeing you do that and remind me of that kind of through our check-ins and whatnot. I'm usually pretty hard on myself in that area. And I used to be kind of the burnout king, like try something, go full out for three
burnout king. I like that.
For 3 months or something. I mean, for those out there that know of, you know, some of these Beachbody exercise stuff, like I've done most of them.
Yep. I've witnessed this.
By the time I'm done with it, right, it's a 3-month blitz and then I'm burnout and I don't do anything for 3 more months. So it's
Right.
been a long shift for me to be like, okay, I was a week instead of letting that week turn into months, because I was like, well, I can't do it now, because if I can't jump back to 6 days a week for 2 hours a day, or, some crazy, goal that doesn't make any sense at all, and don't necessarily enjoy myself, right? Then I just kind of unplug and, do something else for those 3 months. And then I'm like, okay, I'll get back into it. So it's been helpful to be like that sounding board, to see that, and then to apply it myself and be like, yeah, it's fine. It's okay. Just keep going. Right. My goal is more consistency than the results, because I want that behavior. I want that active life. I want that to be something that it's because I do enjoy it. And so so it's been great to have that rub off, from you, Anthony, over to me, and it's really been helpful. So
Yeah, I mean, it applies, like, even thinking about like fatherhood, right? Parenting. Like, I want to be a certain type of parent, right? Where I want to, provide good experiences for my kids. I want to have good relationships with my kids, and, do fun things, be the fun dad or whatever. There are times when I'm not that. A lot of times, right?
Yeah.
And, I get impatient and things fall apart in our house, and, but that's something, again, I have to give myself permission to be like, okay, I might not be what I have ideally in my mind all the time. I might not be doing everything exactly the way I would like to be, but I can keep moving toward that, in that direction. Right.
Yep.
And I can give myself room to be imperfect and to be, have my failures, and still be a good dad, right? And still be
Yep.
a good husband, or whatever it might be.
right.
Move in that direction of, hopefully my kids looking back and thinking I was a cool dad. I don't know. We'll see. And hopefully having a good relationship with them through their lives.
Yeah.
Even after they yell and scream at me that I ruined their life because I wouldn't let them have
Yes.
dessert,
It is your fault, Dad.
Yeah.
Totally.
Curious. Another thing, I can't remember this about you. And so, me and Justin, we get into books. Some of our other episodes, we do book reviews. So just curious if there's, across any spectrum, if there's a book out there that was really influential for you that you may recommend for us for a future episode, or audience, for whatever reason, for whatever you learned from it. If you're in that space, how you consume books and what that might be.
Yeah. So I unfortunately don't read as much as I would like to, because I like actually reading books. My mind wanders. Even when I'm reading, my mind wanders, but when I'm listening, my mind wanders a lot.
Yeah.
Like I'm always on to kind of thinking about the next thing, or I'll go on a tangent. And it's like, I totally don't remember the last
5 chapters later.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm driving, I love listening to audiobooks.
Gotcha.
Like when we're doing the all-nighters across the country, road tripping, I'll pay attention more closely at those times. But unfortunately, I don't read a lot. I don't do a lot of kind of like life improvement, self-help kind of books as much. But there are a couple books that I feel I've read recently, or I am working my way through. Like it'll take me years to work my way through a book that I want to get through.
Yeah.
But it's like, means I really want to get through those books. And I usually am absorbing them the way I want to absorb them. So one was, I don't even remember the exact title, but it was by Gandhi's nephew, I think, about the gift of anger, I believe is what it was called. And I was an angry child when I was younger, and I have children that have have anger issues sometimes.
You've passed on the genes.
I've passed on the genes.
It's funny how they're little
age
mirrors.
thing. My mom swears up and down that I was like an angel child, but I remember getting into my room a lot for blowing up at my brothers and sisters. And younger kids tend to do that, get impatient with their siblings and things like that. But I was just struck by kind of the examples in that book of how, our emotions, all of our emotions we have for a reason, and they can be channeled for positive or negative. And I feel like I got a lot of, you shouldn't feel these types of feelings or have these types of experiences. Those are bad.
Right. Yeah.
But it kind of helped me look at those in a different light and to appreciate, that those can be motivating moments for us. Some of those emotions can help guide us and understand ourselves better and take us in a different direction. And then I'm also reading The Untethered Soul, I believe is the title. I don't remember the guy's name off the top of my head right now. I can look it up. But that's a good one. It's also kind of like a self-reflection book. It's a little bit about like meditation, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of looking at yourself and understanding, like, again, kind of, I feel like in my upbringing, there were a lot of things about thoughts, like you shouldn't have certain thoughts. But this is much more of like, you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts and even your emotions don't define you. Mm-hmm. There are things that you experience, but they don't define you. There are things that everybody feels, and there are things, people will have any type of thought, and really, kind of pulling back and saying, well, those things don't define you. What does? Like, who are you? Yeah. Right. It's kind of a spiritual journey book that I've really enjoyed. It's one of those ones it is taking me years to finish. Like, I'll go in little spurts on it. Mm-hmm. So my reading habits are not as consistent as my workout habits. So I guess, we had a little discussion about values. I guess that might say something about my lack of value on creating the time to be consistent on reading.
Yeah.
No,
I think that's a very telltale characteristic. I mean, if anybody out there, for myself, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, where am I spending my time? Right. I think, Justin, we may have covered this in a previous episode. It's if money is, if all we had was time for our currency, where are you spending it? Right. Follow the money trail. Right. They always say that in the crime shows, like follow the money trail. Well, you'll find your own values in a positive light, right? For this, you'll find what your values are by where you're spending that currency, right? And it sounds like you're spending, with family and the time you can with exercise, and it's a little bit there with the books. And another thought that kind of came to mind, I think, and we had touched on this too, Justin. Curious to get your thoughts on it. This may be kind of a generational gap with what you were describing, Anthony. I mean, that for me had very similar tones to my childhood, as far as like, maybe it's that previous generation of raising kids like, hey, you're a boy, you shouldn't feel these emotions. Don't express them. I'm not even great at naming what they are. I'm always just like, no, that's not how I feel. And someone has to kind of like talk through it. And I'm like, okay, maybe it is. But so there is definitely, I think, because of that, those differences. And I think as we're dads, I think we're much more open to some of those areas that previous generation wasn't in those areas. And it goes both ways for boys and girls, but just from the dad and me being who I am and my history. So I don't know. Thoughts on that? Is that ringing true to you too, Justin? Is that?
Yeah, no, I was gleaning a lot of that when you were talking about that, Anthony, about your own, your ability to kind of forgive yourself. It made me think about how amazing that'll be for children and working with your kids. Excuse Excuse me. Gets me a little choked up. No, I just had to cough on the recording. I apologize, everybody. But that is extremely valuable to be able to try and instill in yourself and therefore in your kids that perfection is not the pursuit. And if that's a starting point, for everybody listening out there, not that we're gurus, we don't claim to be, but we're listening to somebody who's got practical experience as a father and a great perspective. And Anthony, don't make perfection the pursuit. Take the best of the previous generation. Let's take the brightness of hope ahead of us and take who you want your kids to be, dial it down a little bit, allow a lot of room for their own personalities and growth. And I'm really kind of taking away that I need to do that a lot for myself as well, and not just say, well, it applies to everybody else. You know, everybody else can forgive themselves or be a little patient and leave some room for failure, but hang on to, you know, the persistence, where I think I'm very much a defeatist, you know, with that, you know, Chaz, I think you said the king of burnout. And I thought with racing and stuff, that's probably like the coolest nickname ever. But with the context you're talking about, it's like,
it's not so good.
I'm a cyclical failure. It's perfect.
That's so
with that one thing. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit.
It's interesting.
But,
sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
Please.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just thinking, you know, when you're talking about if time were your only currency, there's an exercise I went through, like a realization that I had, right? This epiphany of fatherhood life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like mapping out, literally, I was like writing down my schedule, like for a typical day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I really only get like maybe 4 hours a day, maybe, depending on when kids go down officially, are asleep. Then I can pursue something with focused time.
Yeah.
And of those 4 hours, there's a lot of it that needs to go into like just running the family, right? Like keeping up on finances and bills and
the house.
Yep.
the house and
Helping your
projects
spouse.
and that kind of stuff. So like, that's why I get up early in the morning and work out. I am an early morning person. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know it's not like the thing for everybody, but it was like,
But it should be.
if I want 1 hour, if I want 1 hour for myself to do something, I have to do it while everybody is asleep.
Carve it out of the mountainside.
It
will not be presented to you in the morning. It will not be manna whenever you choose to wake up.
Yeah, it's like I either need to do it like really late at night or I need to do it really early in the morning, because it's like once 7 o'clock hits and kids are awake, it's like, get ready for school routine, go to work, finish work now, right? Because work is at home, but it's kind of like we've tried to really, I've created kind of like my office space where I go and I'm working, not doing anything else, right? Get off of work and it's like, help get the dinner ready, spend time with the kids, do all this stuff until like 8 at night when we're done with story time, and maybe as late as 9 if the kids are wound up and having a hard time going to bed, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, I need to be in bed. Like I go to bed early because I want to wake up early. So it's like I have maybe 2 hours
right
night to get other stuff done. So it's like, that was a huge epiphany. It was like the same epiphany as when I got my first job after college. And my wife and I sat down, we're like, we're going to have money. We're going to be able to do stuff, you know? And then we like wrote out our budget and we're like, oh, we basically have
insurance. What is this stuff?
Yeah, it's like, we basically need to keep living the same lifestyle we've been living in college.
Yeah.
Because all our money now is going to be going to like this or that, you know, responsible thing, retirement and whatever.
Yeah.
But like, we're never going to see that money for a really long time, you know, if we want to meet these other goals. Basically, we're going to keep living the way we've been living. We can't really change it. Oh, our big thing was we're going to get smartphones, right? 'Cause maybe,
Yes.
like, oh, we're going to invest in a phone now.
Yeah.
That's going to be our lifestyle upgrade now that we have a real job. So it was kind of like that same kind of epiphany where it's like, okay, I mapped it out, and it's like, okay, my currency is 3 hours a day, and part of that I know is going to be taken by the life stuff that I've got to do,
Yeah.
and that means I have maybe a couple of hours, an hour and a half or two, and I can watch TV, or I could go get a workout, or I could, read a book or whatever it is. And some days I try and rotate that around, but there's some things I'm trying to be more consistent in. And, I could probably cobble together a couple of another hour of time, on this is the other thing my wife and I talk about. It's like when you're with the kids, sometimes there's downtime, but you never know how long your downtime is going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're going to try and read a book, it's a book that you're going to have to be able to read 2 sentences of before you get interrupted. You need to do something,
Right.
handle the mess that's going on between these 2 siblings or whatever, or chase the 2-year-old down the street before he gets run over by a car. It's can't be really something you can really sink your teeth into.
Yeah.
they have to be really nominal tasks that can be interrupted. And
Yes.
that usually ends up being I'm not on social media, but it usually ends up being catching up on what my family's texting, or scanning news headlines or sports headlines, which is a waste of time, but it's the best use of that time, because what else am I going to read?
That's your bandwidth at that time. It's
Right.
what your family will allow you to have. And I don't want it to sound like it's some kind of sentence or constraint, but that's what time is. It's been that way forever, right?
Yeah.
Since creation, if you want to look at it that way. And what's been on my mind very recently, multiple times today, that's resonating with what you're saying, is just picture this in your head. My typical thought pattern is basically a movie or a film strip playing out in my head.
Yeah.
And it's a older gentleman coming up to you. I think you guys have had this happen. And, they're watching your child or your kids or young people interact.
Yeah.
And they get kind of misty eyed and they look at you because they single you out as parent. And they say, "It goes by fast. It goes by really fast." And you're like, okay, I'm on the alert, but what do I do with that? Well, it's all the things that you're saying, Anthony. It's that recognition that during this season of life that you're in, and a lot of people in the audience are in, or getting close to, it's a finite amount of time. It is a season of life, and you will have to weigh out daily, minute by minute, hour by hour, the values that you're going to put on that day.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to put it on those scales. And the right answer every time is not like a checklist as much as we would like it to be, but it is values. I feel like it is values. It's what am I committed to consistently? What am I going to stick with? But it's kind of improvisation from there when it comes to family and kids, right? We're going to have family time. Well, what does that mean? Because there's a lot of different ways. And if you have multiple kids, do not expect one sibling or one child to enjoy what the other is doing, or you would introduce as the activity. Just expect there to be a negative Nancy or controversial Carl, whatever, those are nicknames. Those aren't my kids' names. But in this season of life, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy 20 years from now who's like, "Sonny, let me tell you what happens. Go to buy too fast." I get it. It's like, you're like, "Hey, I know the season of life you're in. It's crazy. Just spend time with your kids because this is what it's all about."
Yeah.
I just don't ever get that message, but I'm figuring that the wisdom in "it goes by fast" is that generation's way of trying to convey that, and we're experiencing it right now.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good way to look at that.
It's just that generation's way of going, I miss my children. I wish I had stronger connections. Have strong connections with your kids. It only happens through time, face to face. And I've said this a bunch of times in other episodes, Chaz, and I mention it, but I'm as guilty as anybody out there. But if we'll drop the phones, we'll drop whatever work tie we have. I have a work tie that is my phone. It is one and the same. It's a work tool. It's also my sports headlines, ticker, along with other headlines and a little bit of social media. More often than not, I have to err on the side of just telling myself just to leave it on the counter and not think about what it may or may not be telling me or want to tell me. It's such a distraction.
Yeah. Well,
that's all. My confession is over.
Well, we can go ahead and wrap some things up here. Some final thoughts, and I'll give this as a recommendation. And I think we'll probably put this is definitely on our book review list, as well as Anthony. I'm going to add those as well. I think some of those seem very interesting, and I'd like to read those. But everything I'm hearing through this last few minutes here makes me think of the book Essentialism again, right? I mentioned it before to you, Justin, and it's by Greg McKeown. And everything you described, Anthony, like this finite time that we get that fluctuates in the amount day to day. It's all about what is essential for me in my life, for my family. And we've kind of already done this, right? We've whittled some things out. We're not trying to balance everything in the world into those same minutes. We're just trying to balance the handful of things that we really like, we really enjoy. And we've narrowed it down to these essential few. And that's what this whole book's about. And he kind of walks you through it. He teaches you some techniques of how to say no to all these other things that may distract or may, pull you in, so that you can be kind of focused on these essential things. So when it's like, oh, I do have 30 minutes, you know what to go to, and you don't just default to
nothing,
something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you value that time. So, and I'll leave that recommendation to the audience as well. And look forward to future book review on that. And I think there's a lot more there. So Anthony, it'd be fun to have you back sometime, dive into some of these realms.
Absolutely.
In further detail and kind of check back in as well. Thanks again for your time and spending some time with us today.
Yeah, no problem. It's great talking with you guys.
Thank you for taking the time, everybody. We hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. Be sure to subscribe to continue to get more content of extraordinary quality. See you next time. I ate my grandma.